Cusco, Peru. Nestled in a high river valley of the Andes Mountains, among peaks towering over 20,000 feet, this once great city served as the capital of the Inca Empire from the 13th to 16th centuries AD. In 1533, Spanish conquistadors arrived in Cusco and were astonished by the incredible stonework found at a site just north of the city called Sacsayhuaman.
Above the city of Cusco, we find the megalithic site and huge ceremonial Inca complex called Sacsayhuaman. Its most prominent feature is a zigzag wall of 3 levels. Some of the stones there weigh as much as 125 tons and were moved from the quarry at least 3 miles away.
Sacsayhuaman is one of the most beautiful ancient structures you will ever see in your life. There are massive, gigantic megalithic blocks, and you find the most amazing of masonry style where you can't even fit a dollar bill in between the fittings of any of the blocks.
Sacsayhuaman served both as a fortress and a ceremonial center. A circular structure that lies within the megalithic walls, called Mayuk Marca, was the base of a tower where the Inca worshipped the sun god Inti. However, many experts suggest that while the Inca certainly utilized this megalithic structure, they were not the ones to build it.
Standard belief is that the Inca constructed Sacsayhuaman less than 1,000 years ago. But some of the earliest Spanish chronicles, it is said that the Spanish were completely astounded by seeing this site, and they asked the local Inca, "Did you build it?" And the Inca replied, "No, this was here when we arrived 500 years ago."
Many experts believe Sacsayhuaman predates the Inca by thousands of years, and that the Inca built on top of what came before.
The Inca were a Bronze Age civilization, and the stones at Sacsayhuaman are metamorphosed limestone, which is much harder than bronze, and could not be cut or shaped using bronze tools. Inca built on top because you can tell a major difference between megalithic construction, where the stones fit perfectly together, and the Inca, which is stones piled on top of stones with mortar as filler.
But if Sacsayhuaman really does predate the Inca, as the Inca themselves claimed, how could an even earlier civilization have possessed far superior technology?
The ancient Inca talk about celestial beings who descended from the sky a long time ago and imparted the first knowledge of anything toward people of Earth. The ancient astronaut theory suggests it was human beings who built Sacsayhuaman, but under the tutelage of the extraterrestrials.
Thebes, Egypt, 1290 BC. The elderly King Ramses I passes away after a reign of just 16 months, and his son Seti is announced as the new pharaoh. Egypt is in a period of chaos, and Pharaoh Seti believes the only way to save it is to restore the power of the old gods.
Pharaoh Seti is one of the most important characters in Egyptian history. And one of Seti's most important objectives as pharaoh was to bring back the old gods, to bring back the power of the old gods, the understanding of the importance of Osiris.
One of the things that he does as part of that restoration of the old ways to the multiple gods is go to Abydos, builds the temple there with lots of different side temples that are there to worship these different gods and goddesses.
In Abydos, Seti built one of the most magnificent temples in all of Egypt, containing 7 chapels dedicated to different gods. But when Seti arrived in Abydos in 1951, the great temple she claimed to have known in her past life was all but gone.
There was around 2,500 pieces of the temple scattered everywhere. and Ghazuli and others had no idea how to fit these pieces back together. But Seti, maintaining that she had this past life memory, could tell them, oh, this piece would go here, this piece would go there. I remember it looking like this.
This was an incredibly daunting task, but she started each day with unbridled passion and enthusiasm, and Abydos was reconstructed according to Seti's instructions.
She solves the amazing jigsaw puzzle of putting together these 2,500 pieces and restoring the Temple of Abydos in 2.5 years, which is absolutely impossible without her extraordinary understanding of the temple. It would have taken 20 years for anybody else to do the work that she did in 2.5 years.
According to Seti, restoring the temple at Abydos was about much more than just resurrecting the past. To her closest friends, she confided that this ancient structure served an extraordinary purpose.
Seti would actually state that the Temple of Abydos served as a stargate of sorts, a place where you were able to jump in and out of time and space.
A stargate? Could the Temple of Abydos have acted as a portal to other points in the universe? According to ancient astronaut theorists, a feature inside the temple supports this sensational claim. They point to a bell-shaped object painted on a chapel wall that some refer to as the Osiris device.
When we look at this symbol through modern eyes, it's highly technological. To the eyes of a physicist or an engineer, it looks like a Tesla coil. And you wonder, what could an image that resembles a Tesla coil be doing on the walls of a temple that's 3,500 years old?
The Tesla coil was designed in the late 1800s by inventor Nikola Tesla as a way to wirelessly transmit electricity. But ancient astronaut theorists suggest there is a far more advanced technology depicted on the opposite wall of the chapel.
On the opposite wall, we see the same device, but now it's attached to what is called the Neshemet barge of Osiris, his resurrection barge. And what's so amazing about this barge is that its shape is virtually identical to the way modern science portrays a wormhole or an Einstein-Rosen bridge.
The power of Abydos is something that we're still only beginning to understand. It's such a profoundly mysterious place.
"400 miles south of El Paso, Texas, in northern Mexico, stretches a remote and rugged section of high desert. This area, near the town of Ceballos, is referred to by the locals as the Zona del Silencio, or the Zone of Silence. It's an epicenter for some of the strangest phenomena ever experienced on Earth.
Nothing works there. If you go there with your cell phone, the cell phone stops. If you go with a radio, it stops. If you go there with a compass, the needle just keeps spinning.
It's completely bizarre. There's strange rocks everywhere. You have strange mutated animals living in the desert in this area. You feel a strange tingling when you're there.
The Zone of Silence was first identified in the 1930s by Francisco Sarabia, a Mexican pilot who claimed that his radio had mysteriously failed to function while flying over the area.
They call it Mexico's Bermuda Triangle. It's located practically on the same parallel, 28th and 26th parallel, and as a result of that, it goes and connects with the Egyptian pyramids. So all around that whole sector, there seems to be some connection between the anomalies that are occurring through these different parts of the world.
As a scientist, you're trained to be skeptical, or maybe you were born that way, but we really don't believe anything. You know, nothing is proven until you actually have evidence. But I can say that Earth's magnetic field does vary across the surface by up to a few %.
One of the strangest cases involving the Zone of Silence took place on July 11th, 1970, when the U.S. Air Force launched an Athena missile from its military facility in Green River, Utah. The missile was programmed to land 700 miles away at the White Sands Missile Range in New Mexico. But for some unexplained reason, the Athena missile flew hundreds of miles past the White Sands Range towards the Zone of Silence.
Not only did it go off course, it way overshot, as if it had been picked up or yanked or dragged or pulled into it. There was a NASA spokesman who even said it was weird. It was like the thing just got pulled into this area, and it ended up crashing there and breaking up into bits.
But some claim this missile is not the only thing that's been mysteriously pulled into the Zone of Silence. Ancient alien theorists believe an unusually large number of meteorites have crashed here.
The evidence seems to be indicating that the Zone of Silence is some powerful energy vortex area that's literally sucking meteorites and other space debris right into this small area of northern Mexico.
There's a high level of magnetism in the area. That's been proven by science. We know there's a magnetic signature to the entire area. Is it strong enough to attract large objects like meteorites? I think we need more research, but I don't think that research is being done right now.
Starting 3,000 years ago, the Anasazi culture inhabited the region to the north, in today's American Southwest. Anasazi means ancient ones, and they paid great attention to the stars. Scientists have determined that in 1054 AD, a supernova explosion was visible from Earth. Many believe the first known drawing of this event was found inside an Anasazi cave dwelling. South of the Zone of Silence, other cultures, including the Maya, also reportedly possessed a surprisingly detailed knowledge of similar celestial events. Is it possible that both of these cultures were somehow exchanging information?
They're separated by thousands of miles, but both the Anasazi of the north and the Mesoamericans of the south found the Zone of Silence and used it as a meeting place between their two cultures. You can imagine if you studied the stars at night and plotted the constellations, obviously one of the things you're going to see are these meteorites streaking across the sky. If your answers come from the sky, you probably would follow those streaking meteorites and find out where they ended up. And the theory is that they may have found what they were looking for in the Zone of Silence.
In the United States, there are over 6,000 UFO sightings reported every year, more than any other country in the world. But why? Is there an explanation for such a high number of UFO sightings? Could aliens have a special interest in America? According to ancient astronaut theorists, not only are aliens watching over North America today, but in fact, they have been visiting us for hundreds and possibly even thousands of years. And they claim the evidence can be found in the strange sites, structures, and monuments that lie in every corner of the continent.
America is really a very mysterious place with all kinds of strange legends. So trying to put all of these things together in context shows us that we're living in a very unusual continent full of magic and mystery.
Serpent Mound in Adams County, Ohio. The Kivas at Chaco Canyon, New Mexico. Bighorn Medicine Wheel in Wyoming. Many Native American tribes say that at these ancient sites and countless others, entities that they call star beings came down from the sky to teach their ancestors.
To the Zuni people and other tribes, there's a spiritual connection with the star beings. They're the ones that actually rule the universe or the world that we're on. If you look at the petroglyphs, there's a lot of references to those type of entities.
According to tribes like the Zuni and Hopi, stories of these otherworldly visitations exist not only in the oral traditions passed down from their ancestors, but also in petroglyphs carved into rock all across America. On the Zuni Pueblo in New Mexico, there are literally thousands of ancient carvings that most outsiders have never laid eyes on. And the Zuni claim that some of these petroglyphs depict visitations from star beings.
There is definitely evidence that aliens visited North America in a distant past, and there are petroglyphs throughout this part of the country carved by ancient Americans that depict just that. What can you tell me about this petroglyph right here?
You know, if you can see on top of it where maybe a head would be, it's kind of eroded off. But on the next part of it, there's 4 compartments, look like extension of something sticking out.
Yeah, almost like legs.
It could be something that they saw in the air.
Isn't there a legend that beings visited on top of this mountain?
Oh, yes, on all of the mesas.
In conjunction with all the stories of star people descending from the sky in fiery shields and things like this, when I see a pattern like that, I always think, what if this is something that they saw and then they carved onto a rock?
And a lot of these are sacred drawings. They're just not graffiti like a lot of people say they are.
No, never.
There was no such thing as that in those days. Look at that triangle up there.
And you've got the dots around it that have been carved into the rock. They remind me like stars.
Could the ancient people in this part of America really have been trying to depict encounters with alien spacecraft?
There are legends and myths all around the world that can be interpreted as having been visits by extraterrestrials, and many think that such stories don't exist here in the United States. But the fact is that there are things in this country that nobody's even dreamed of.
According to ancient astronaut theorists, there is evidence that otherworldly beings were not only witnessed by Native Americans, but also by the European colonists. And curiously, one of the earliest UFO sightings reported in the colonies occurred in an area that the local Wampanoag Nation claimed was a point of contact with star beings. The Hockomock Swamp, southeastern Massachusetts. Located 25 miles south of Boston, in and around the suburban town of Bridgewater, this vast wetland is infamous for being the heart of the Bridgewater Triangle. According to Native American legends, this 200 square mile region has been a hotbed of UFO sightings dating back to before Columbus arrived in the New World.
Within the Bridgewater Triangle, a huge amount of interesting paranormal activity has been reported, including very high numbers of UFO sightings. Some people speculate that maybe it's the presence of the Hockomock Swamp.
The very name Hockomock means place where evil spirits dwell. European colonists settled this area in the 17th century, but the stories of paranormal activity here go back long before that time. Time and time again, we see stories about beings that live in the sky, flying canoes, what are apparently spaceships that land, people that get out and interact with the Native Americans.
On May 10th, 1760, in this same area where Native Americans say star beings interacted with humans, European colonists reported seeing mysterious lights in the sky. The account appeared in a publication that was read throughout the English-speaking world called The Gentleman's Magazine.
According to historical records, at 10 a.m., a sphere of fire appeared that emitted a light bright enough to cast a shadow in bright sunlight. And this object was reported to be seen not only in Bridgewater, but also in Roxbury, over 30 miles away. Now that's interesting to me because the fact that people in 2 different cities reported seeing the same thing at the same time, to me says that they really saw something.
It was seen by a huge number of people, and one observer remarked that the sound that this giant ball of light made was heard more in the middle of its travel than at the beginning, which I think is a very interesting detail that does correlate to some extent with more modern UFO reports.
The Bridgewater sighting of 1760 is just one of many incredible events that took place in colonial America. It was mysterious, it was the frontier. Something was up there in the sky way before any powered flight had been invented by modern humanity.